It's good to be a man. Chapter 3, sex is very good, and sex drive is very good. Hey, if you're liking this content, give me a like, subscribe, give me a comment below. I've been hearing comments that they think my channel's been shadow banned or something, like you can't hit the like button on it on some people are telling me or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I am shadow banned. I don't know. The post-millennial man, it could be. Who knows? Give me a like, comment, subscribe. Give me a dislike. If you don't like it, give it a dislike. You know, give me some frowny emojis or something. Whatever. Just give me something on my page. All right, let's get to it. Chapter 3. Sex is very good. The sex drive is very good. God could have made exercising dominion, as Genesis talks about, asexual, but he did not. He made a man's sexual desire and a woman's sexual desirability central to filling the world with his image. That is how God created it in a perfect world. This wasn't as a result of sin. This was in a perfect world. This is how he created it. A man alone achieves a little, but a man and his wife achieve a lot more as they are fruitful and they multiply. A man, his wife, and their children are the foundations of cities, states, nations. It follows then, because of this, that sex is the engine for dominion, as a man and a woman join together to form a household and then build out societies. It's pretty good stuff here in chapter 3. A household, it's a miniature world. It's a microcosmos. The more households you have, the more towns you have, the more societies you have, the more nations you have. It's the microcosm there. And it's through man's powerful, and we know this if you're a man, we know this, powerful sex drive that these households are built. And through these households, societies are established and cultures are established, and the next generation of men is shaped and trained in these households until they leave their father and their mother and they join themselves to a wife. They become one in the sexual union because of this sex drive that the man has. Now, women have sex drive as well, but it's not nearly as powerful as the male sex drive. Usually the sex drive, the hormone for sex drive is, I don't know if it's exclusively, but it's certainly dominated by the hormone of testosterone. Men have, on average, 15 times the amount of testosterone that women do. So that's pretty significant. So chapter 3, one of the best, this is probably not just in chapter 3, but one of the best things in the entire book of it's good to be a man. It's good to be a man. It's good to be a man. One thing, the best thing, I think, in the entire book, one of the best things that he says that really hit me was that sex drive is not a curse, but sex drive is a blessing. Our sex drive is a blessing from God. And I thought, wow, I have never heard that the sex drive is a blessing from God. Now, maybe that's growing up in my time period in purity culture. I don't know if anybody's kind of looked into this purity culture thing. And, you know, that was pretty much my generation. I'm 40. And my generation was the purity culture generation. I think there was good stuff in the. I hear all these mostly women out here just raging against how they were raised in purity culture and oh, it scarred me, blah 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 blah. And usually it's just they're scarred by it because they need an excuse to be a harlot. So that's why purity culture, blah blah blah, whatever. You know, I mean, or at least the things that I've read, the reasons why they just cannot stand purity culture. I just don't think they're credible at all. But he says in the chapter that our sex drive, it's like a fire, and if it's not harnessed correctly, as we all know, it can burn, and it can cause incredible damage with a misplaced sex drive. What Scripture would say, sex outside of the marriage covenant is where it can really burn and cause major problems. This fire that is in the belly of any normal man. I guess any normal man here. Now he really gets down to some nitty gritty here, things that you don't normally hear in church in chapter 3. He says that men are naturally and biologically turned on by fertility cues, the hourglass shape of a woman. That is a biological urge set in place by God. A man likes a woman who is ovulating. That's a biological cue as well. I don't know if anybody knew that or not. But and he asks the question in the chapter of how has the church sometimes not seen sexual desire, the sex drive, as a gift from God. And I think one of the ways that we were talking about in my Bible study when we were going through the book, which was really good to go through the book in a men's Bible study, that was really good. But there's this thought, and it's been here for centuries, that women are more pure than men because they don't have the same kind of sex drive. And because they don't, they are more pure than men. And that is a perversion of God's design for masculinity. That our sex drive is a blessing from God. It must be placed within marriage to produce, to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, to produce children. And that's why the book of Malachi says God made men and women to come together for one reason, and that was he was seeking godly offspring. That's what the book of Malachi says. It says, why did God bring the two together? Because he was seeking godly offspring. And a man's sex drive drives this to happen. And so it is a blessing from God. I know sometimes it may not seem like the sex drive is always a blessing from God. And that's why the Apostle Paul would say, it's better to be single if you have the gift of celibacy, which most everyone does not have that gift. And so instead of, he says, but it's better to marry if you're going to burn with passion. Now, who is burning with passion? Well, most everyone, because God has blessed us with a sex drive. And so we need to get married in the marriage covenant, find a good Proverbs 31 woman. Now, I know they're hard to get out there. I know they're hard to find. I know I was listening to a guy today that said a good marriageable woman today now it's 2024, there's about 2.4% of women are good marriage material there. Now, I don't know how exactly he came up with that number. I thought 2.4%. Can you imagine? That's probably why Proverbs 31 says that she is more rare than rubies. This wife of noble character, she is more rare than rubies. So, I mean, if you can't find one that's more rare than rubies, just, get a decent one, all right? I mean, you're probably not more rare than rubies either. So, I mean, come on. Sometimes you got to be a little bit humble and say, well, maybe I'm not the most awesome thing out there either. That's okay. That's okay. You can do that. You can do that. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Anyway, big takeaway from chapter 3. Chapter 3 is that sex drive is a blessing, not a curse. Think about that. That's a good thought. It is a blessing from God, and we've got to use it in the right way. Now, one last thing, I was reading this book about marriage today. Now, I believe in marriage. I believe in the covenant of marriage. I believe in going to church, in a church, covenanting before God and man, stay together. The marriage license, though, the getting legally married, I am not so sure about that anymore. I don't. That seems to be all downside for the traditional man. It's all downside. If the woman decides to go, she decides to split, boy, it's all downside there. Now, one thing, there's a book by Ethel Kay. It's called the Married Man's Sex Primer, right? Is that called the Married Man Sex Life Primer? So it has to do a lot with this sex drive. Now, the thing about Athol K, if I understand him correctly, is that he grew up as a Christian, and somewhere along the way he stopped following the Lord, and he's not walking with the Lord now. I don't. He might claim atheism or agnosticism or whatever. But anyway, he has some good thoughts in the book there, and one of the things that he said in the book is that, to summarize marriage today, he says marriage doesn't guarantee that your wife will have sex with you, that she will be faithful to you, or even stay married to you. But marriage legally creates a financial team that may result in ongoing financial support after the marriage is ended, and also very likely support for any children that the wife has during the marriage. So he sums up legal marriage as creating a financial team. And that's essentially all it really does, is create a financial team. And if the marriage ends, you would think, in our modern day of equality, rah, 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 six boom, bah, that the financial support would end. Well, that's not the case. There's many cash and prizes for leaving a marriage if you are the one of the weaker financial partner, the weaker financial status that has, which is almost always the wife in that case. So just a warning there about marriage, because he's primarily writing his book in regard to the sex drive and a married man's sex life. And yeah, it's a good book, pretty good book to read. But he says, yeah, modern marriage doesn't really have much to do with a fulfilling sex life. That's modern legal marriage has to do with creating a financial partnership. That's all downside for most men. Anyway, get married though. Get married, covenant before God. If you don't sign the contract, whatever, yeah. But covenanting before God that you will stay together, and I think our churches need to hold us more accountable to that as well. Like, it seems like once you get married, the church just says, okay, here, the state's going to take care of it. No, I mean, I think that's one area that the Catholics really get it right, that, boy, you got to appeal to the Pope himself, I think, to actually get a divorce in the Catholic Church, which, wow, it's pretty serious. Anyway, sex drive is good, and Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Postmillennial Man.